and, and to acknowledge that we gather here to discuss a very important issue: global democracy and the impact on women's inclusion in peacemaking. As we continue to reflect and to celebrate on how far women in South Africa have come over the past 30 years of democracy, this Women's Month, it is important to reflect on lessons learned, the challenges that are ahead, and the solutions that we need to consider together. 24 years ago, the United Nations Security Council, as we are all aware, adopted Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. This milestone resolution has four pillars, namely prevention, participation, protection, and peace building and recovery. It became a convening point for efforts across the world to address the challenges women face in conflict situations. We have clear evidence that women's participation in peace and security processes is essential for their effectiveness. And we've heard Mam Ramakoshi allude to that a few minutes ago. It strengthens protection efforts, improves the prevention of radicalization, and accelerates economic recovery. Additionally, the meaningful participation of women in peace processes leads to more sustainable peace agreements. In spite of this knowledge and the evidence that supports it, however, we are finding that progress remains very slow. For example, many peace agreements still make no mention of women. United Nations military peacekeepers remain predominantly male, and very little aid to peace and security targets gender equality as a principal objective. There are still many challenges in the way to progress in peace and security across the world. The number of people who need international assistance has greatly increased over the past decade. And as if the problems that come with traditional conflicts are not enough, they are worsened by threats such as global health pandemics, climate change shocks, and a pushback against women's rights by violent extremism. All of this makes the work that gathers us here today, the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda, more important and urgent than ever. We are not just aiming for equality, but for peace that is sustainable. As UN Women, we are focusing our efforts on making progress in several key areas, and I will allude to them now very briefly. One being increasing the participation of women in peace negotiations, mediation, and conflict prevention. We have to continue to champion women's involvement in peace talks and in conflict situations globally. Secondly, we are promoting women's participation in planning and economic empowerment in peace building and recovery. Thirdly, we continue to advocate for the increase of women peacekeepers, realizing that their role is vital in mission success. We are fighting to end impunity by promoting access to justice and supporting accountability for conflict-related sexual and gender-based violence. We are promoting a gender-sensitive approach to countering violent extremism that recognizes gender inequality underpins the extremist agenda. 5, we continue to support the development and implementation of Resolution 1325, national action plans, to ensure that solid targets are set and adequate resources to back implementation are allocated. Lastly, but not least, As the UN's coordinator for women, peace, and security, we are continually engaging the United Nations Security Council to keep all these issues as a priority in discussions. As a collective, we have made progress, but also know that our work is far from done. We are still not at the point where women and girls' contribution to peace building is valued and adequately resourced. This means that our society is still leaving untapped and credible tools for transformative change and sustainable peace. As our society progresses and develops with all the advances, we must realize the gender equality in every aspect of life is not just a women's business. It is everyone's business. It is a peace and security issue, an economic issue, and a human rights issue. Our involvement is crucial for building the peaceful and prosperous world everyone wants to see. We need all hands on deck, and I take this opportunity to call on us all to determine to keep it, and where possible, to do even more. We all have a role to play. Policymakers, civil society, traditional and religious leaders, everyone can do their bit. As for us gathered here, let us keep advocating and amplifying women's voices in peace processes. Let us keep pushing for gender responsive policies and institutions. And let's hold all respective stakeholders accountable for their commitments to gender equality. On behalf of UN Women, I'd like to take this opportunity to appreciate the role of government and civil society partners in convening and leading this work in South Africa. And we reaffirm our commitment and support for this work. I wish us all fruitful discussions today and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goody, for also reminding us that this is just not the responsibility of women, it's for society, and it's also about human rights. And also the point you raised or reminded us about that there's no peace without justice, and there's no peace without development. Our next speaker is His Excellency, Mr. Andreas Kravek, the State Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Norway. Let me say, if you allow me, DM and Excellencies, we wouldn't have done this program without Norway. We started this program about 10 years ago, and it's women themselves who were in our program. We're doing a generic program, and the women in that program from, I remember one from Tanzania, another from Namibia, some from South Africa, and another one from Chad, who said, we want a program for women only. They said in these programs, when you've got men, because men have got lots of experience, they talk a lot, and we're unable to say about our own experience. We want our own program. And then at that time, we didn't have many resources. We didn't know what to do and how to go forward about this. And someone said, we've got good partners, and Norway is one of those. So we went to Norway, to the Norwegian ambassador at the time, and we said, we've got this request from women from the rest of the continent who said they want the program. Then they said, let's sit down and discuss and plan and how we're going to do it. And we didn't take, it was too easy for them to agree. We thought there must be a mistake. Perhaps they didn't hear that we're asking for funding, for help here. They just said, it's fine, let's just sit down and plan. And we were looking at each other, and I remember Ambassador Nevalt was there, said, we're not sure. And then they came back, they said, we are ready, let's do this. We've been doing it for over 10 years. We've trained about 850 women. I think there are more now. So it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce the State Secretary of Norway, Mr. Andreas Kravik, to really share his thoughts and message to this gathering today. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and let me start by thanking you for this opportunity, and thank you for the kind words about our collaboration, our strong partnership, which goes back many years. So I really appreciate that introduction. Deputy Minister Moroka, it's an honor to join this panel with you on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Norway, Mr. Espen Barth Eide, who sends his regards. Distinguished fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, through past and present peace efforts, South Africa has earned respect and acknowledgement around the globe. South Africa is also a steadfast champion of the women, peace, and security agenda. We share the belief that the inclusion of women is essential for effective conflict prevention, conflict resolution, and peace building. The Gertrude Shope is one of several stepping stones in South Africa and Norway's strong partnership on peace and reconciliation. The MOU between our countries on peace and reconciliation frames regular bilateral consultations. Our cooperation on training women and young leaders in mediation is another tangible step in our partnership. The theme for the forum, Global Democracy and the Impact of Women's Inclusion in Peacemaking, and this session on visible leadership leading through visibility and action, are both timely and well taken. I would like to make 3 points going forward. Firstly, leadership, mediation, and diplomacy is more needed than ever, and women must take their rightful place in this work. The world is mired in challenges. Wars and conflict situations are fast evolving. Globally, democracy is under pressure. Countries are deeply polarized. Climate change risks further aggravating conflicts. The mediation landscape is also changing. Geopolitical dynamics make their mark on conflicts, wars, and actors are fragmented, and an increasing number of third parties offer mediation support and get involved. We have to make sure diplomacy and mediation are considered key tools to address the situation we are in. For Norway, the war in Ukraine has led to a major shift in our foreign policy. With an illegal war of aggression perpetrated by Russia, a neighboring state, a state that we border, on another neighboring country, we have mobilized broad support for Ukraine. We support the Ukraine peace formula, and we are committed in the long term. Norway is also highly invested in the work for a peaceful resolution of the war in Gaza. We work for a viable two-state solution to strengthen the Palestinian Authority and help the Palestinian people. While these wars command a lot of our attention, we are committed not to lose sight of other wars and other conflicts. We invest in diplomacy, dialogue, and negotiation efforts in Sudan and South Sudan, Ethiopia and Somalia, the DRC, the Sahel, and also in the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America. Mediation and conflict resolution are high-risk investments. We do not always succeed, but we have to stay adamant in our belief that we have to try. These efforts will require a diversity of approaches and partnerships. Importantly, ensuring that women can participate in full and meaningful ways is imperative. That brings me to my second point. We have to be strategic and systematic in implementing Security Council Resolution 1325. While women carry out much peace-building work and local mediation, they continue to be underrepresented in peace and security strategies and in mediation teams and peace processes. They have the insights, the experience, and the know-how, and we must make sure that this is put to better use. Making sure women are involved only makes sense. We see a pushback on normative frameworks and advocates for stereotypical gender roles. This poses serious challenges for women's participation in politics, advocacy, and peace efforts. We have to work together to look at how policy and concrete measures can make a difference for women's equal and meaningful participation. South Africa and Norway have together significantly contributed to the capacity building and training of women. Let us take the lead and ensure that their expertise is utilized and visible in concrete mediation and peace work. Recently, at the Oslo Forum, I had the chance to discuss barriers to women's participation in peace processes and how to overcome them with a group of experienced men and women. This provided concrete food for thought. They mentioned information barriers, specific capacity building that is useful, early strategies for participation, the value of women's networks, and protection needs. Norway is currently implementing its fifth national action plan for women, peace, and security, and followed up by targeted guidelines in different ministries. Peace processes and peace building is a central part of the plan. We promote women in our mediation teams and urge the UN and regional organizations to do the same. In Norway, half of the special envoys to peace processes are women. Finally, based on our experience, women's networks serve an important purpose. South Africa inspired the Nordic Women Mediators Network created in 2015. Other networks have since been established. These provide a reservoir of highly qualified experts for peace processes. Norway will continue to support the networks and the Global Alliance. Thirdly, let me say a few words about international law and the UN, because this is the backbone of conflict resolution. Defending international law has never been more necessary. Gaza and Ukraine have brought to the fore the limits of international leverage and diminished faith in conventions and principles. Accusations of double standards deepen polarization and undermines conflict resolution. Norway, as a matter of principle, comes to the defense of international law regardless of who violates it. We call on states to be consistent. If one calls out for international humanitarian law to be applied in Gaza, one also must do so for other wars. So avoiding double standards and avoiding that states take a different approach based on contextual considerations is something that we have to move away from. In Norway, we have tried to be consistent. We have tried to be clear in our condemnation of Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, much as we have been very clear-eyed about what is at stake in Gaza and calling out Israel's violations of international law in that conflict. And I can think of no a more important partner in South Africa in terms of building credible institutions and giving credibility to the international legal framework. So we are very, very happy to be able to discuss these issues with our South African counterparts. For mediation, international law remains fundamental and offers important guidelines for our efforts. Lack of respect for international humanitarian law also makes mediation and humanitarian work more dangerous. To conclude, there is no shortage of challenges ahead of us. Without peace and stability, there is no environment for development. Conflict and crisis drive humanitarian needs. They just keep growing. Therefore, the work on 1325, peace and security, and the nexus between peace, security, development, and humanitarian response is so essential. The Norwegian-South African partnership is of imperative value and potency. I am honored to be here today and look forward to furthering our collaboration. I would also like to thank each one of you for your invaluable work in fulfilling the promise of this agenda. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. I had hoped that by this morning I would have remembered some words in your language, which I was going to use. So I failed dismally on that one. Thank you very much, Excellency.
Thank you very much.
I hope there are local South African women here, because now we are going to be welcoming to the podium our Deputy Minister. And when we say When we say Malibongwe, Malibongwe, Gamala Makoskas. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you our Deputy Minister, Ms. Thandi Muraka. Our Deputy Minister was a member of the Executive Council of the Sports, Arts and Culture in Limpopo Province, which is the MEC, the leader, from 2018 to 2022. In 2022, she was elected to a 5-year term on the party's National Executive Committee. She formerly served as Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress Youth League from 2015 to 2019, and as a member of the Limpopo's ANC Provincial Executive Committee as well from 2018-2022. The CV is very long and impressive, so I'm not going to go through it all. Your Excellency, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Watinta bafazi, Malibongwe, igama lamakosikazi. Program Director, thank you very much. To some of you who can't understand us when we say Watinta bafazi, we literally mean you strike a woman, you strike a rock. I thought I should be generous and explain to our colleagues. Your Excellency, the State Secretary of the Norwegian Foreign Affairs, Mr. Andreas Kravik, who just addressed us here virtually. Your Excellency, the Deputy Representative of the UN Women, Ms. Hazel Goding, my sister, who has blessed us here in person. The Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Ambassador Salim Omar Abdu of Eritrea, Program Director, who's our Deputy Director General in this department, Aus Maud Dlomo, Ms. Mabatu Ramahosi, the representative from the civil society who was addressing us online here today, all members of the diplomatic corps and international organizations that are joining us here today, members of the Gertrude Shope, South African Women Mediators Network, who are also with us here today, members of the civil society from all sectors that are here, and also those that are coming from the regions that are also here with us, all government officials here in South Africa and also abroad, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Dimacheroni, good morning, Absheni, Tobela, Yaleboga. Program Director, it is a great pleasure to stand before you today to present the keynote address at this auspicious Gertrude Shope Annual Dialogue Forum. This is my first direct engagement with the Annual Dialogue Forum, which allows us to celebrate the legacy of my Gertrude Shope, one of those who made it possible for us to have this significant day that is called National Women's Day in the country of South Africa. Uma Shope celebrated her birthday yesterday, and I would like to join the rest of the world in extending my birthday wishes to her. We want to really
celebrate her life that she has spent during her activism and also the service that she has given to the people of South Africa and the world at large. Yesterday, Shope was celebrating her 99th year birthday. And before coming here, I said to the organizers that next year, as she will be celebrating her centenary, let us be with her in person. And I hope we'll achieve that, program director. Shope is a fearless champion, a dedicated anti-apartheid icon, a daughter of Africa, a freedom fighter of note, a phenomenal woman, a woman of substance, and really we need to continue to celebrate her because it's women like Shope who continues to lead in the pursuit of justice for the vulnerable groups and equality for women and girls that we continue to see those programs being championed. The establishment of the South African Women Mediators Network is therefore based on a solid value system because it is named after this phenomenal woman, Umama Gertrude Shope. I wish to start by thanking our partners, particularly the government of the Kingdom of Norway, as well as the people of Norway for their enduring support to South Africa and the whole African continent in dealing with the women and peace security agenda. Can we clap hands for the Norwegians? Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, every year on the 9th of August, we as South Africa, we celebrate that momentous day that took place on the 9th of August, 1956, when more than 20,000 women of all races delivered a petition to the union buildings in Pretoria. Indeed, this year, we marked the 68th anniversary of that brave march under the theme celebrating 30 years of democracy towards women's development. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in that same spirit of bravery, commitment to peace, justice, and based on the evidence of what can be achieved when we are united as South Africans. This year, on March the 8th, 2024, the government and women civil society organization and also experts who are involved in the whole continuum of peacemaking processes at home and also abroad came together and launched the Gertrude Shope Women's Mediation Network. The network was the culmination of the work done through various programs and platforms such as Gertrude Shope Annual Dialogue Forum and the Capacity Building Program on Conflict Resolution and Mediation and Negotiation, which some of you who are here today might have attended it virtually this week. Can I see those that have attended it virtually who are here with us? I'm told we have several of them. Thank you very much for your presence here. Can we clap hands for them? This network aims to bring together women and youth to share and build common consensus around their experiences and best practices in the field of mediation and peacemaking, and also influence relevant policies in their various spaces. More importantly, such a network provides South Africa with sufficient capacity to address relevant conflict challenges and also contribute to similar processes in the world and also in the continent of Africa. The network is comprised of members ranging from community-based activists, up to national and academic sphere with the ability to anticipate and mitigate against conflicts outside of government constraints, because we know that government alone will not achieve on this issue of mediating and managing conflicts. So we really need those organizations to join hands with government to really overcome this issue. The network is committed to invest in identifying other forms of dialogue and peacemaking initiatives, as it would participate in similar networks within SADC and also within FEMWISE, as I'm told is in the continent level, which is Africa, and also Global Alliance of Women Mediators Network that is already in existence. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that some of the root causes of conflicts have amplified and are based on new developments in our various societies. Against a backdrop of rapid technological challenges, economic uncertainties, a warming planet, and a conflict, we are also being faced with a myriad of challenges which cannot only be left to state actors to resolve alone. Here I refer to challenges of global warming and extreme weather patterns that are brought about by climate change, the challenges of digitization and unregulated artificial intelligence across all borders, and also issues of border crime, indulging human trafficking, and migration, to mention but a few. All of this impacts more severely on women because of the vulnerability position within which women find themselves in our various communities and in society at large. Last week, and as part of building up to this dialogue forum, DERCO hosted 3 dialogues series which reflected on the role of women in democracy within the digital space, including the impact of digitization and artificial intelligence on women mediation, and the impact of climate change on women, and what is being done nationally and continentally and globally to mitigate against such an impact. These discussions lend themselves to unpacking the less conventional aspects of mediation and will indeed influence our training programs going forward. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, globally during the course of this year, over 60 countries will hold national elections. This is a record and a growing example of the voice of the people in matters of governance. Indeed, 2024 is being labeled the ultimate election year. Besides South Africa having held its polls just a few months ago, 7 out of this world's 10 most popular nations, including India, the United States, Indonesia, Pakistan, Russia, and Mexico. At this point, it is important to note and congratulate the people of Mexico for electing the first woman president, and I think all of us really need to give them a round of applause. All women out there are watching the space, and the democratic agenda should ensure that political leadership includes women in a substantive manner. We should not only see women as household aides, we must see women as presidents, we must see women as chairpersons of AU, we must see women as ministers, and we must see women in all sectors of our society, because women are capable equally, just like their male counterparts. However, Program Director, while democracy deepens across many regions, including ours, the recent geopolitical shifts and growing conflicts has resulted, according to a UN report, in the largest global food crisis in modern history, and an increased number of people who are in need of humanitarian aid continues to rise. Much of this increase is driven by nearly 200 armed conflicts and situations of organized violence, as well as by the climate crisis and the lingering impact of the coronavirus disease that has befell us as a country, as the continent, and the entire globe. In this difficult context, the UN estimates that the number of women and girls living in conflict-affected countries reached 614 million in the year 2022, which is 50% higher than the number as it was presented to us in 2017. Furthermore, the globalization of democracy allows us to reflect on providing sufficient resources and on an emphasis that the plight of those that are affected really needs to be resolved through conflict. Predominantly, women and children must be at the center stage of those initiatives. In order to meet these challenges, capacity building programs and the advent of many women's networks demonstrated the existence of skilled and capable women. However, the challenge of ensuring that women have access to these spaces remain problematic, and it really needs all of us to join hands to make it happen that we address these challenges. Providing financial resources to give women equal opportunities to enter these spaces is thus more an issue of paramount importance. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is also important to point out how ongoing conflicts in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the northern Mozambique, and also in Sudan, and further afield in the Ukraine and Palestine, especially in the Gaza, affects more severely women and children. These conflicts, especially in Gaza, have the potential to escalate into a broader regional war, which will pose a significant risk to the global economy, widen geopolitical and political divisions, and also stoke global extremists. These actions epitomize a lack of respect for territorial integrity, human rights, and also international law and the multilateral system, which are at the core of South Africa's foreign policy. With the injustice happening in Gaza and elsewhere in the occupied Palestinian territories, the South African government took Israel to the International Court of Justice for violating the UN's 1948 Genocide Convention. I want to remind all of you of the words that were uttered by our democratic founder of our democratic South Africa, Utata Nelson Mandela, when he once said, "The freedom of our country, South Africa, will be incomplete without the freedom of the people of Palestine." Program Director, we really need to move with speed in helping the people of Palestine so that they can attain their own freedom. As the above conflicts are highlighted, there is a growing need for conflict management practitioners, including mediators globally, and the voices of women need to increasingly echo in this environment. During an address to the UN Security Council in 2022, the Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Antonio Guterres, stated, and I quote, "The participation of women in mediation and decision-making processes is vital to conflict resolution. Their analysis is critical to understanding conflict dynamics and building effective response and prevention strategies. Studies also show that the active engagement of women peace builders increases the chances of having lasting peace solutions. That is why we need full gender parity, including through quotas, to accelerate the inclusion of women across election monitoring systems and also in the security sector forums and also in the disarmament and demobilization and justice systems. And I end the quote. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this statement underscores why the Gertrude Shope Dialogue Forum is so important to us as a country, as a region, and also as the rest of the globe. The impact of women at grassroots and national level, and also regionally and continentally, is of vital importance to achieving the vision of the Africa we want, as stated in the AU's Agenda 2063. We must redouble our efforts in centrally locating women in the peace and security agenda. We are also doing this through inter alia, the establishment of Gertrude Shope Women's Mediation Network. The position of women across all these tracks of negotiation and mediation, right down to grassroots level, also needs our attention, all of us collectively. And I'm equally encouraged by all I have heard here today and look forward to further being part of the Women and Peace Security agenda going forward. Program Director, let me conclude by thanking all our partners for their support and immense contribution to this critical program. This forum is doing incredible work, and I think we need to work towards building it from strength to strength in recognition of the work of Mashope, a cadre of peace, a phenomenal woman, a heroine of our liberation struggle. Allow me, Program Director, to quote one of our stalwart of our revolutionary struggle, Umama Charlotte Maxeke, a woman of faith, as all of you affectionately know her. She once said, and I quote, "This work is not for yourselves. Kill that spirit of self and do not live above your people, but live with them. And if it can happen that you rise, bring someone with you," close quotes. And I think, Program Director, this kind of words of Umama Charlotte Maxeke, it really urges all of us to join hands in making Women Mediation Network a success for other women to also enter into the space. I thank you.
The leaders have spoken. Thank you so much, Excellency DM Marake. And let me thank all others high-level speakers who inspired us this morning and also reminded us about why it's so important to have this day and also to have this month. At this point, I want to bring the acting chief director to introduce the group. Let me say again, as he comes in, let me thank the indomitable dream team, which we work with. I can see Pillay there, Nicole, Martin somewhere. There are colleagues who have been doing wonderful stuff and making sure that this happens. And so when we look good here, it's because these colleagues have been working so hard to make this happen. I just want to say thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Program Director. Thank you again, Deputy Minister, for that inspiring speech. We as men, we also have a responsibility to be part of that process and also to be champions of women, not only in our own households, but all over the world and in South Africa. But this is a good part of a closing. Let me introduce to you one of two sets that's going to take place by something special. The Mzansi Ballet Company is a homegrown classical fusion dance company founded in 2017 by Dirk Badenhorst. Their core mission is to nurture artistic talent and expression, foster cultural appreciation, and build communities through dance in South Africa and internationally. The Mzansi Ballet remains dedicated to preserving and perpetuating South Africa's rich dance history and heritage, and we love dancing in South Africa. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mzansi Ballet Company.